Welcome in everybody to this edition, our first edition of Biz Rizz. Celeste,
Biz Rizz.
Biz Rizz, we gotta
I
come up
love
with
it.
some counts or something.
I know.
We're kind of trying to be hip with the kids. I mean, Riz is like the word of the year, 2023. So we're going with it. So in Biz Riz, we basically want to take a question and break it down from an aspiring sports journalist. The question that came into us, Celeste, was regarding interviewing and cover letter slash resume. Nerves in an interview is kind of all encompassing, and best advice we would have regarding those situations when you go into an interview, what your cover letter resume should look like, how you handle nerves, etc. So I'll tee it up to you to start.
Okay, I'm going to start first with the resume, Amy, because I think that's where you get the juice for the interview. So, on the resume, you really should have your skill sets
Mhm.
that you can qualify or quantify, right? So, either showing how many people you've managed or showing how many people you work with, right? Like those are quantifiable skill sets that people can look at.
Mhm.
Sometimes I see on resumes, because I hire a lot of people, especially over the years, is skill sets that really can't be measured. So a skill set, for example, like the word worked. Like, what does it mean, worked? It doesn't really mean anything. If you've led, that's much stronger. If
Mhm.
you've edited, much stronger. So be as specific as you can
Specific.
on those skill sets and really do your own resume. You know, with all my clients, what I teach is doing your own master resume where you actually see yourself in that resume. A
Mhm.
lot of you will play small out there. You got to go big, be the ballers that you are. Again, showing numbers is huge. Being able to talk about people you've worked with or places you've interned with that are big names, right? Like putting all of that on your resume. And then really taking it to the cover letter piece, right? And the cover letter to me is just three parts in my formula. And the first is really the first paragraph is about the company, right? Find a great motto about the company, find something you like about the company. And basically, it's showing the company and signaling to the company, here's my research that I did to work
I
for
did
you.
I did some time to look you up.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
Instead of talking about how great you are the whole entire page, because a lot of times when I get that resume, I'm like, I understand from your
Right.
resume, you're a baller, right? I don't need you to spell it out in the cover letter. What I
Right.
want to see in the cover letter is did you do research on Bally Sports or did you do research on Girl Gig Podcast, right? Then the next paragraph is a little bit about you, right? What are your qualifications? And
Mhm.
then that last paragraph is simply the match made in heaven. Why does it work? Why are you the fit for Girl Gig Podcast? Why are you the fit for Bally Sports? So three simple paragraphs. And
That's
I'll
great.
end it with going into the interview. So if you've done your own resume, right? And people will talk about SEO and analytics and running things through systems. To me, I don't care about that, right? Like if you have established who you are, when you go into that interview and you've practiced out loud, as Amy knows from all of her time being on camera, you will sound so much better in that interview and you'll be more personable. Really work on that question. Tell me about yourself. I've asked so many people, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself off the top. They cannot spit it out because they're
Mm.
nervous or they're scared. And it's totally understandable. But in those moments when you are nervous and scared, say it because I would rather hire you knowing you're nervous and scared and you really want the job versus you being like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I'm so scared. I'm not going to say anything, but
Mm.
fumbling through the whole entire interview. And remember too, in the interview, it is much about owning your power to decide if you want to work for the person that's
Mm.
sitting with you as much as them wanting you. A lot of you will give up your power in those situations and really try to appease the interviewer, right? Putting a lot of pressure on yourself. But when you've done the research on the cover letter and you've done your homework on your resume and you've practiced the actual interview with mock questions, practicing out loud, when you're sitting there, what will happen is you will decide if you actually want to work for that person
Mhm.
and that company. So, Amy, what do you have as far as, all this stuff we talked about? What do you think?
Really good stuff. Really good stuff. I'm gonna go the opposite way. So I'll start with interview, and I agree with everything you said. What I'll add to that is when you absolutely should be rehearsing in this day and age of AI to not get on and say, please give me some potential interview questions I could face trying to get a job in the sports industry, and then a bunch shoot at you so you could practice and be prepared for what might be coming your way from a potential new position and a new boss. You should have some questions ready for them. I am always really impressed if somebody that I'm looking to work with asks me questions, and I always leave it like, do you have any questions for me? And when they don't, it sticks with me that they didn't have anything to ask me about the job. So really think about what you want to know and be aggressive in asking those questions back to the potential employer. And then I'm going to go pretty logistics here and almost like surface. What are you wearing? What are you how are you walking into this room? I know this is so silly, but you only get one chance at a first impression. And I think it's imperative to really put time into your appearance. It's a big thing that I teach in my class at Sonoma State for public speaking, that you could know everything about this subject, but if you look like you rolled out of bed, that's all I'm concentrating on. I'm not even listening to what you're saying because I'm appalled at what you look like. So you really do need to take time in your appearance. I think it's so, so important. To the cover letter and the resume, I'll combine this. My biggest pet peeve, and poor Miranda, who's behind the scenes right now listening to this, has been a student of mine, knows what it's like to be, in my wrath with grammatical errors. There with texting today, and my daughter always says, IKR. I have to think about this. And then I'm like, what? She goes, IKR, IKR. Well, that means I know, right? Well, just say it. Stop talking to me in acronyms and like truncated language, and all the way everybody texts back K instead of okay. Like, stop making everything small. Spell it out, use capitalization, use punctuation, use grammar correctly. I probably didn't even say that correctly. If my mom, she's going to be like, well, why don't you say it right first? But grammar and correct grammar, and having gone through your resume, reading it out loud, go through your cover letter, read it out loud, show it to somebody else. Please check this for spelling errors or grammatical errors. You need to take the time to do that. If I see grammatical errors in the essays that come to me, or resumes or cover letters, out. They didn't even take the time to use spell check, right? And by the way, here's my last piece of advice. Spell check is not enough. Go through it, read it out loud, give it to somebody who's really good at reading and writing and all that kind of stuff, if that's not your forte, which it kind of needs to be in sports. But that's what I would add to it, is just be thorough, be thoughtful, and put the time in.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'd want to add is Allison Vigil, who we just had on, who is the senior producer at for the Rockies pregame show. She talked about being yourself. And I stress that all the time. When you are in a interview, do you, right? You don't want to like pretend you're somebody you're not, because you're going to go into that job and just not be happy. So do you, because people are looking for you. And I know that's hard to imagine because you're like, I don't have a job. I don't know what I'm doing yet,
Who
right?
am I?
Yeah, exactly. All those different things. But when you are yourself and you are confident, like to your point, Amy, dressing nice, feeling confident, feeling good about yourself, then you shine. And people are like, oh, yes, I need one of you to go along with all these other, people and all these other, things that we're doing. I need you versus, okay, you're going to be like 5 other people that I've already hired. So I really don't want you.
Yeah. And I think too, like when I used to coach, and I see, we work with so many coaches, Celeste, and I hear this all the time, that they'd rather take the athlete that's a grinder and is authentic and genuine in who they are as a human being, because they're coachable. They'll learn what they need to learn for the job or for the team. When you get a superstar or cocky, or somebody who's not genuine and authentic, uh, it's toxic. It can be a toxic situation for your team, and so you're not going to get hired. So I always think of it that way: is who's a really good person, and who came across really authentic and genuine in that process, and that's who I want to be with. So I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Biz Rizz.
Biz Rizz.
Biz Rizz.